Imagine walking through a dark forest and hearing footsteps heavier than a horse behind you. You turn around, and standing there is a bird taller than a human, with a hooked beak designed to rip flesh apart. Now imagine that's only the beginning, because millions of years ago, Earth was ruled by creatures so horrifying they look like monsters straight out of nightmares. A shark the size of a bus, a snake longer than a school hallway, a giant flying predator that could block out the sky, and an ocean monster with blades instead of teeth. These weren't myths, they were real. And if even one of them still existed today, entire parts of the world would become deadly overnight. Tonight, we're counting down 10 nightmarish animals you should be very thankful are extinct. But trust me, some of these creatures are far more terrifying than dinosaurs. Pterodoct, the 10-foot predator that hunted like a dinosaur. Around 60 million years ago, long after the dinosaurs vanished, another nightmare stepped in to rule the land. It was called the terror bird, and despite the name, this thing was far worse than it sounds. Standing nearly 10 feet tall, the terror bird looked like a twisted mix between an eagle and a velociraptor. It couldn't fly, but it didn't need to, because it could run faster than most humans. Imagine hearing giant footsteps pounding behind you while this massive predator charged across open plains at terrifying speed. Its curved beak was its deadliest weapon. Scientists believe the terror bird used that razor-sharp beak like an axe, striking prey repeatedly until bones shattered and flesh tore apart. Unlike modern birds, this creature hunted large animals, and once it locked onto a target, escape was nearly impossible. What makes it even more disturbing is its appearance. Its long legs, giant black eyes, hooked beak, and feather-covered body made it look less like an animal, and more like something humanity was never supposed to see. Some species were so powerful they became the top predators of their entire ecosystem. For millions of years, these creatures dominated South America like unstoppable killing machines. And if one suddenly appeared in a city today, people would probably mistake it for a dinosaur escaping from a laboratory. But the scariest part, scientists believe the terror bird may have hunted using pure intimidation. Its towering size alone could freeze prey in fear before the attack even began. Just imagine standing alone at night, hearing deep screeching echo through the darkness, then seeing a giant shadow sprinting toward you faster and faster. Luckily for us, the terror bird disappeared thousands of years ago, because if these monsters still existed today, no hiking trail would ever feel safe again. Distraught, the shark that could swallow a car deep beneath the ancient oceans. There once lived a creature so massive that even today, scientists struggle to fully understand how terrifying it really was. The megalodon, the largest shark to ever exist. This monster grew up to 60 feet long and weighed more than 50 tons. To put that into perspective, its mouth alone was large enough to swallow a human whole without slowing down. And its teeth? Some were over 7 inches long, bigger than a grown man's hand. But size wasn't the worst part. Megalodon hunted whales, not small animals, not fish, entire whales. Scientists believe this predator attacked with unbelievable force, smashing into prey from below before tearing massive chunks of flesh away with rows of serrated teeth. Imagine floating in the middle of the ocean, then suddenly seeing a shadow larger than a school bus rising from the darkness beneath you. That fear alone would be enough to stop your heart. The ancient oceans were basically megalodon territory. Anything unlucky enough to enter its hunting grounds became prey, and unlike modern sharks, Megalodon had almost no competition. It ruled the seas for millions of years like an unstoppable underwater nightmare. What makes this creature even scarier is how little we truly know about deep oceans today. In fact, some people still believe Megalodon could be hiding somewhere in unexplored waters. Scientists strongly reject those theories. But honestly, just the idea of something that size moving silently beneath dark water is enough to terrify anyone, because oceans already feel endless. Now imagine knowing a monster the size of a whale is hunting inside them. Eventually, climate changes and disappearing food sources caused Megalodon to vanish forever. And that's probably one of the best things that ever happened to humanity. Because if this creature still existed today, nobody would ever swim in the ocean again. Pterodoct, the snake bigger than a bus. Around 60 million years ago, hidden deep inside steaming prehistoric swamps, lived the largest snake the world has ever seen, Titanoboa. And this thing was absolutely monstrous. It stretched up to 50 feet long and weighed over a ton. That's longer than a city bus. Just imagine seeing a snake so massive its body alone could block an entire road. But Titanoboa wasn't venomous. It didn't need venom, because this creature killed by crushing its prey slowly and violently. Scientists believe Titanoboa wrapped its enormous coils around giant animals and squeezed tighter with every breath they took, until bones cracked and organs failed. And the hotter the environment became, the more active this monster grew. Its swampy habitat was basically a perfect hunting ground, filled with dark water, thick fog, and almost zero visibility, which meant prey often never saw it coming. That's what makes Titanoboa truly terrifying. It could disappear completely underwater. Imagine walking near a silent river at night, hearing movement beneath the surface, then suddenly seeing a giant scaled body rising from the black water. A modern anaconda already terrifies people. Now imagine one 3 times larger. Researchers believe Titanoboa could even hunt crocodile-like creatures without difficulty. Nothing in its environment was truly safe, and unlike movie monsters, this animal was completely real. Its discovery shocked scientists because many couldn't believe a snake of that size could ever exist on Earth. But it did, for millions of years. The scariest part is that giant snakes still exist today in remote jungles and rivers around the world, which makes people wonder, if nature created Titanoboa once, could something similar evolve again someday? Thankfully, Titanoboa eventually disappeared as Earth's climate changed. Because if a predator this massive still lived in modern swamps and rivers, nobody would ever go near the water again. The giant centipede from hell, if you hate insects. This next creature might be the most terrifying thing on this list, because hundreds of millions of years ago, Earth was crawling with a nightmare called Arthropleura, a gigantic bug-like creature that grew over 8 feet long. That's longer than most couches. At first glance, it looked like a massive centipede from another planet. Its body was covered in armored segments. Dozens of legs moved in disturbing waves as it crawled through ancient forests. And just imagining the sound of this thing moving through leaves at night is enough to make your skin crawl. Scientists believe Arthropleura lived during a time when oxygen levels on Earth were much higher than today. That extra oxygen allowed insects and creepy crawlers to grow to horrifying sizes. And Arthropleura became one of the biggest arthropods to ever exist. Now technically, researchers think it mainly ate plants. But honestly, would that even matter if you saw one crawling toward you in the dark? Its appearance alone looks like pure nightmare fuel. Picture yourself walking through a foggy forest. Everything is silent. Then suddenly, you hear hundreds of tiny legs scraping across the ground nearby. Your flashlight turns slowly, and an enormous armored creature emerges from the shadows. Long body, sharp-looking legs, towering size. Even if it wasn't hunting humans, fear would take over instantly. What makes Arthropleura so disturbing is how alien it looks compared to modern animals. It doesn't resemble a mammal or reptile. It looks ancient, wrong, unnatural, like something that should never have existed. And thankfully, it no longer does. Because if insects this large still roamed modern forests today, camping would become a terrifying experience nobody would survive calmly. Atoranot, the wolf-like monster with bone-crushing jaws, millions of years ago, before modern predators ruled the planet, there existed a creature so strange and terrifying that scientists still debate exactly what it truly looked like. Its name was Andrewsarchus, and it may have been one of the most dangerous land mammals to ever live. The only fossil ever discovered was its skull, but that skull alone was massive, over 3 feet long. Its jaws were packed with crushing teeth, powerful enough to tear through flesh and crack bone with horrifying force. Imagine a predator built like a giant wolf, mixed with a wild boar, and powered by the bite of a monster. That's what Andrewsarchus may have looked like. Scientists believe it roamed ancient coastlines and open plains, searching for anything it could overpower. And based on the size of its skull, this animal was likely enormous, possibly weighing over a ton. But what makes Andrewsarchus especially terrifying is the mystery surrounding it. Nobody knows exactly how aggressive it was, nobody knows how it hunted, and nobody knows how many existed. All we have is the remains of a gigantic predator with one of the largest mammal skulls ever discovered, which somehow makes it even creepier. Because your imagination fills in the missing details. Picture standing in a cold prehistoric landscape at sunset, no civilization, no weapons, no place to hide. Then, from the distance, you hear heavy footsteps crunching across the ground. A massive shadow appears through the fog. Long jaws, dark eyes, teeth built to destroy bone. And unlike modern predators that may avoid humans, this creature probably feared absolutely nothing. For ancient animals unlucky enough to cross its path, Andrewsarchus was likely pure death. Thankfully, this nightmare eventually vanished from Earth millions of years ago, because if giant predators like this still roamed the wild today, no one would ever feel safe outside again. Dat Nudrogt, the armored sea beast. Long before sharks became rulers of the ocean, another creature dominated the seas with terrifying power. Its name was Dunkleosteus, and it looked like something pulled straight from a nightmare. This ancient predator lived over 350 million years ago and could grow nearly 30 feet long. Its body was massive, but the most horrifying part was its head. Instead of normal teeth, Dunkleosteus had giant sharpened bony plates that acted like deadly blades. Every time its jaws closed, those blades sliced through flesh with unbelievable force. Scientists believe its bite was one of the strongest in prehistoric history, powerful enough to crush bone instantly. Some researchers even think it could bite through armored prey like paper. Imagine being trapped underwater while a creature the size of a truck charges directly towards you with blade-like jaws opening wider and wider. There would be nowhere to escape. And unlike modern predators, Dunkleosteus was heavily armored. Its thick protective plating covered much of its head and body like natural tank armor. That made it both hunter and weapon at the same time. The ancient oceans during its reign were terrifying places. Dark waters, strange creatures, and this armored monster ruling everything beneath the surface. What makes Dunkleosteus especially disturbing is its appearance. It didn't look like a normal fish. It looked ancient, aggressive, almost mechanical, like evolution accidentally created a living underwater war machine. Scientists have discovered fossils showing brutal injuries from attacks between these creatures, meaning they likely fought each other in violent underwater battles. Just imagine witnessing two sea monsters colliding in black prehistoric oceans. The water would turn into chaos instantly. Thankfully, Dunkleosteus disappeared millions of years ago as Earth's oceans changed, because if creatures like this still hunted modern seas today, deep water diving would become one of the most dangerous things on Earth. The Astrononoct, the saber-toothed killer. When most people think of prehistoric predators, they imagine dinosaurs. But one of the most terrifying hunters to ever walk the Earth was actually a giant cat. Smilodon, better known as the saber-toothed tiger. And this creature looked absolutely deadly. Its most famous feature was its enormous curved fangs. Some grew nearly 11 inches long enough to stab deep into flesh with a single bite. But Smilodon wasn't built like modern big cats. It was heavier, more muscular, far more powerful. Its front legs were incredibly strong, allowing it to wrestle massive prey to the ground before delivering a fatal attack. Scientists believe Smilodon hunted using ambush tactics, which means victims often never saw it coming. Imagine walking through a frozen prehistoric forest at dusk. Everything is quiet. Then suddenly, a massive shape explodes from the shadows, powerful paws slam into you, and giant fangs flash inches from your face. That's the kind of predator Smilodon was. Fast bursts of violence, pure strength, and terrifying precision. What makes this animal even scarier is that humans may have actually encountered them long ago. Early humans shared parts of the world with saber-toothed cats, which means ancient people likely lived with the constant fear of becoming prey themselves. And unlike lions or tigers today, Smilodon looked even more intimidating. Its muscular body, short tail, and giant teeth gave it an almost unnatural appearance. Like evolution created the perfect prehistoric killing machine. Some fossils even show severe injuries that healed over time, meaning these predators survived brutal fights and continued hunting afterward. That makes them seem even more unstoppable. Thankfully, changing climates and disappearing prey eventually drove Smilodon extinct. Because if giant saber-toothed predators still hunted modern forests today, no one would ever go camping alone again. Astrant, the flying creature bigger than a plane. If seeing a large bird circle above you feels unsettling, imagine looking up and seeing a flying monster with a wingspan as wide as a small airplane. That creature was Quetzalcoatlus, one of the largest flying animals to ever exist. This prehistoric reptile lived during the age of dinosaurs and stood as tall as a giraffe when on the ground. But once it spread its wings, it became something truly terrifying. Its wingspan reached nearly 40 feet. That's wider than many small aircraft. Just imagine the shadow this creature would cast as it passed overhead, darkening the ground beneath you for a few horrifying seconds. Unlike modern birds, Quetzalcoatlus looked strange and almost unnatural. It had a long, spear-like beak, thin body, massive wings, and giant eyes that made it resemble a creature from another world. Scientists believe it could travel huge distances through the skies searching for prey. Some researchers think it hunted small animals on land by stalking them like a giant nightmare stalk. Picture standing alone in an open desert. The wind suddenly stops. Then a massive shadow moves across the ground beside you. You slowly look up and see an enormous flying creature circling silently above your head. No screaming, no warning, just silent wings gliding through the sky. That silence somehow makes it even scarier, because predators that quiet usually strike fast, and if Quetzalcoatlus decided to attack smaller prey, there would be almost no chance to escape. The scariest part is how alien this creature truly looked, not like a bird, not like a bat, more like an ancient dragon brought to life. And thankfully, these sky predators disappeared millions of years ago. Because if creatures this massive still flew above modern cities today, people would panic every time they looked at the sky. Tontrodok, the crocodile that ate dinosaurs. Millions of years ago, rivers and swamps hid a predator so massive that even dinosaurs feared going near the water. Its name was Deinosuchus, and this creature was basically a prehistoric crocodile turned into a living monster. Growing over 35 feet long, Deinosuchus was larger than most modern crocodiles could ever dream of becoming. Its body was covered in thick armored scales, its jaws were enormous, and its bite force was powerful enough to crush bone like wood. But what made Deinosuchus truly terrifying was the way it hunted. Just like modern crocodiles, it waited silently beneath the water, completely still, watching, waiting. Then without warning, it exploded from the river with unbelievable speed. Scientists believe Deinosuchus attacked dinosaurs that came too close to shore. Some fossil evidence even shows massive bite marks on dinosaur bones, meaning this creature may have dragged giant prey directly into the water to drown them alive. Imagine standing beside a swamp at night. The water looks calm. Nothing moves. Then suddenly, a gigantic armored head rises slowly from the darkness only a few feet away. Rows of teeth, cold eyes, water dripping from jaws large enough to tear a human apart instantly. That's the nightmare Deinosuchus brought to prehistoric rivers. And the worst part? You usually wouldn't see it until it was too late. Because ambush predators rely on surprise. 1 second everything feels safe, and the next second you're gone. Even today, modern crocodiles terrify people around the world. Now imagine one nearly twice the size. A monster capable of hunting dinosaurs. That's what Deinosuchus really was. Thankfully, this ancient predator vanished millions of years ago, because if creatures like this still lived in modern rivers today, nobody would dare step near the water's edge again. Batrolot, Earth's first sea monster, more than 500 million years ago, long before dinosaurs, sharks, or even trees existed. The oceans were ruled by something truly bizarre, Anomalocaris, and this creature looked less like an animal and more like an alien nightmare. It had a long segmented body, giant compound eyes, and 2 spiked arms extending from its head like claws designed for grabbing prey. But the strangest part was its mouth, a circular jaw filled with sharp tooth-like plates that looked almost mechanical. Scientists believe Anomalocaris was one of Earth's first true apex predators. At a time when most creatures were small and defenseless, this thing hunted them easily through ancient oceans. Imagine swimming in dark water, and suddenly seeing a creature with spinning jaws and giant eyes rushing toward you from the darkness. Even by modern standards, it looks terrifying. And that's what makes a Anomalocaris so disturbing. It existed at the very beginning of complex life on Earth, almost like nature's first attempt at creating a monster. Its giant eyes gave it excellent vision, allowing it to track movement in murky prehistoric seas, and its claw-like arms likely grabbed prey before dragging victims directly into its horrifying circular mouth. The oceans back then were completely different from today. Strange life forms moved through dark waters that no human could survive in, and among them, Anomalocaris was one of the deadliest creatures alive. What's truly unsettling is how unnatural it still appears even after hundreds of millions of years. Most extinct animals resemble something familiar, but Anomalocaris feels different. Its body shape, mouth, and movements seem almost impossible, like it came from another planet entirely. Thankfully, this ancient sea monster disappeared long before humans ever existed, because if creatures like this still hunted modern oceans today, the deep sea would become one of the most horrifying places on Earth. Nature once created creatures far more terrifying than anything from horror movies. Giant sharks, monster snakes, flying predators, and ancient beasts powerful enough to dominate entire worlds. The scariest part is knowing these animals were completely real. They lived, they hunted, and for millions of years, they ruled the planet. So before you complain about spiders or sharks today, just remember, things used to be much, much worse. And somewhere in the deepest parts of Earth's oceans and jungles, there may still be creatures waiting to be discovered.